Hello, friends. This is Alia Jamal, the Love Coach. We are meeting for another conversation, and today I wanted to talk about a very subtle difference or a very subtle point. It's a tiny shift that can make a huge difference in your life, and that is, are you focused on yourself or your life? You might say that, focusing on myself is going to improve my life, or focusing on my life is going to improve myself, and they go hand in hand, but that is not true. So here's the nuance that I want to talk about. Our life is a process. It's a process of refining you. And there are going to be moments that are going to be they will feel very difficult. And if you're focused on that process or that moment, it's very possible that you are going to start identifying with it and say, what is wrong with me? Why I'm still here? Why do I keep ending up here? Instead of staying separate from it and just witness yourself go through that process. And that happens to all of us. Um, there is maybe a downward spiral in our process, and it makes us feel stuck, sometimes for decades, because we told ourselves a story about it and now we are stuck with that story. But when we are focused on ourselves, then we are not that attached to the process. Then the conversation more becomes, how am I feeling right now? What do I want right now? How do I want the situation to turn out? Everything goes within. So there's a conversation I did, I believe, sometime last week, living internally versus externally. When we focus on our life, it takes us to external focus. When we focus on ourselves, it takes us to internal focus. The process is always going to be there. There's no retirement as long as you're living. um, Life is going to push us to expand and become a higher version of ourselves. When we don't agree to that, when we say, no, I'm not changing, I'm just going to stay stuck here, that is when things start to become difficult. Uh, that is when we turn towards numbing things. That is when we start using drugs, alcohol, watching TV, more than we are supposed to be watching. Sometimes, like, sitting there for 12 hours, binge watching, binge eating, all those behaviors start to show up when we refuse to embrace the process. We come up with a sad story, we get stuck in that sad story. So, the more you realize that your life is just a process, if you're cooking a dish, it's the recipe. It's always going to be there. It's going to be there in the recipe. Sometimes we are just, cooling the ingredients. Sometimes we are sauteing the ingredients. Sometimes we are frying the ingredients. The same way, sometimes we feel fried by life. Sometimes we feel like, I can finally take a deep breath. So your life is a process. Now, when you focus on yourself and the meaning you give to that process, or when you stay connected with, how am I feeling? What do I want to feel? Where do I want this to go? That is when you feel more in control. That is when you can have a much more elevated experience as a human than when you're focused on your life. So now, what does it mean to even focus on yourself? What can you do right now? I know one of our uh, friends here, she suggested that at the end of every conversation, I highlight, what can we do right now? So look at your life right now, but look at it as if it's a story that you're writing. Do not look at it as, this is my life. This is me. I'm attached to it. Create a little bit distance between you and what you're going through, and put it in front of you. It's even easy, like, if you can write it down on a piece of paper, the highlighted stuff that's going on. Maybe you're going through a relationship shift right now. Those are very difficult ones. Maybe you're going to a career shift right now. And if all your identity is attached to money and security, that is going to be very difficult for you. or maybe you're going through a health transition right now and you're looking for a solution how to heal your body and you're not able to find it. So put it in front of it and then ask yourself, how do I want to show up? What is the character I want to be? Do I want to be the person who freak out all the time, or do I want to be the person who can happily go through it? We have the power to choose to be a different version of ourselves. Now, that is something most of us don't know. At least I didn't know that. I thought this is just how I am. We have the ability to choose, how do I want to respond to life? Now, when you're asking yourself the question, how do I want to show up in this story? Who do I want to be in this story? First, we have to make that decision. That is when you're focused on yourself. So once you have that down, here's the story, this is the character you want to be, then you ask yourself what shifts you need internally. Maybe you need to speak, maybe there's a need to start speaking differently. Maybe there's a need to start thinking differently. Maybe there's a need to start treating yourself differently. And these are the nuances we don't focus on in our day to day life, especially when you're going through a big shift in your life. Whether you're going through grief, whether you're going through depression, whether you're having one of those anxious episodes in your life, we don't focus on how I am contributing to it, what shift I need within me. So every morning, wake up and ask yourself, how do I want to show up today? And who do I need to be? What shifts are required within me? That is a life lived where you're focused on yourself. Let's say I decide every morning that today I'm going to be calm, peaceful, and joyful. Now, no matter what comes in front of me, if that is the choice I have made, I am going to approach it with calmness, with peacefulness, and with joy. Now, one thing I want to mention here, I'm 100% sure you have heard this advice somewhere else too. The reason some of us are able to step into that peace, joy, and calm, and some of us are not able to do that, or maybe in some areas you can step into that, and some areas you cannot, because you have not resolved the past trauma yet that is tied in that area. For example, let's say if you always had like a bumpy road in relationships, and yet again another relationship is falling apart in your life, and you have a huge story about it, how people are and how you are. It's easier to look at the story how people are, and it is very difficult to see how we have a perception of our own. And that perception keeps creating our experiences. So do the work, and that is not a conversation, that is where you will um, join an expert. You can join my world. I take people through a year-long transformation. You will join somebody, because that is the work we are not able to do on our own. We can get to awareness on our own, but for transformation, we need someone who's outside of our head, someone who can observe and see us and help us navigate the ways we have kept ourselves stuck within ourselves. So, for that little piece, we need another person. And when you are able to resolve that story within you, that perception about yourself or about the world or about your life, then it becomes so much easier to step into calm, step into joy, step into peace. Because now there's nothing pulling you down. When we have unresolved trauma and when we have these set in stone perceptions, that energy pulls us down, and we are not able to show up as our soul self with a heart wide open, ready to embrace every moment. So if you find it difficult that, yes, you make up your mind every morning, I'm going to be very calm today, and then by 11 a.m., you're losing it. That means there are specific energies within you that pull you down that you're not aware of, that you have not looked at yet, even if you have been 10 years in therapy, you have not looked at them yet, and they are ready to be resolved. Otherwise, they won't even be showing up. Otherwise, you won't even be having, this content show up in front of you. So that is what requires to shift your focus out of your life and onto yourself. And the more you focus on yourself, the magic that happens from it. When I wake up every day and I am focused on how am I going to think today? How am I going to speak today? Who am I going to be today? Um, what kind of perception or expectations I'm going to have of life itself. When I operate from that level, now I am at the frequency of my soul. My soul has very specific energy, and my ego has very specific energy. Ego is the conditioned self. Ego is the part of us that wants to keep us safe. It wants to put everybody in a box so it can be safe. It wants to have plan A, B, C, and D just in case something goes wrong. Our soul self shows up in every moment with trust and a knowing that everything is always working out for me. There's no such thing as bad stuff. Everything is good. Even if the most difficult moment you're meeting, even that moment is good. So there's a little bit of a difference. Our work is when we are healing our relationship with ourselves, when we are working on opening our heart, living from heart space, not just in words, but in a real focus. A lot of people, they just live from their heart just because they think they are living from their heart, but they haven't really done the work to come out of their head and shift into the heart. So when you're really living from here, are the whole reason we do this work so you can become more of your soul while still in the body and less of your ego self. That is the work. The work is never 100% complete. We all need the ego, because we are still in a human body. We are still limited and contained in this physical self. But we do want to do the best of our effort every single day to be more in the frequency of our soul. That is peace, that is calm, that is joy. So look at your life, whatever you're going through, decide who you want to be, and then look within yourself. What shifts are required? And if you need help, you can always reach out to me. You can go to aliajamalcoaching.com and you can book a consultation with me. You can send me a DM, you can comment, and we'll get in touch. And I would love to be your guide on this journey of coming home to your true self and stop living as your ego and your conditioned self. I'm sending you all so much love. I'll be back tomorrow and talk to you soon. Bye.